99 and enter participant access code 7382948 during the live meeting. Corporate Officer, do we have any late items to introduce?
We do not, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. May I ask somebody on council to bring forward approval of the agenda? Councillor Holmes, Councillor Traynor, all in favor? Great, thank you. And then on to 4.1, adoption of minutes. October the 28th, Committee of the Whole meeting, November 2nd, special meeting, and November 9th, our regular afternoon council meeting. Are there any changes that need to be made for these minutes? If not, could I have someone bring forward adoption? Thank you, Councillor Barkwell and Councillor Holmes, all in favor? Great. And now on to our first public comment opportunity. Do we have anybody on the line? No, okay. That makes that easy. Pardon me, I've missed the delegation, the most important delegation. I would like to introduce the Rotary, members of the Rotary Club that are providing us with a Giant's Head Mountain update. Ellen Matthews, and I see Linda Van Elfen, and I'm not sure who else is representing the Rotary, but welcome ladies, and proceed when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Boot, and thank you, Council, for hearing our delegation today. Linda is here as the President of Rotary, and I'm here as a Rotarian and part of Giant's Head Grind Committee. Nancy Wilson, who has been very helpful with the project, unfortunately has a serious illness with her father, and so she couldn't make the meeting today. We've had a number of investigative moments over trying to figure out how to put lights on the mountain. Unfortunately, at this point, we have not been able to come up with a solution that will work for this year. However, we will continue to look for a solution to that for next year. But in the meantime, what we have been able to secure is 3,200 feet of light, and also Thor from Bartlett Tree Services has offered a day's worth of his labor and his truck for hanging lights. So we've been working closely with Lori Mullen at Parks and Recreation to find solutions to where these lights could go that would still be something positive for this year and something that we may still be able to do as a fundraiser. And the most recent solution or suggestion, which came from Public Works, from Martin, was potentially the pier at Rotary Beach, so the Rotary Beach Pier, and the chain link fence that goes in each direction from the pier. So that was the most recent sort of recommendation, and we like that one a lot. Lori then took it to the electrician for the community. He said that they could work with that, and with the operating permits, we have to make sure the lights are CSA approved, which I believe, and we will confirm one way or the other that they are, but I'm sure they are. They came from Canadian Tire, who was very generous and donated them for an incredible price. And he made some other recommendations about the staff putting the appropriate hooks on the pier so that for safety and theft protection. There is an electrical panel that's close by that could be utilized. He reviewed the lights on the chain link fence and thought that they would be fine, just nothing that could go onto the ground. His concern to raise was that the pier has some structural issues, and that I think council is aware of, but there has been signage posted about that. So he just wanted to bring to the attention of council that if we put Christmas lights up there, would there be an issue with people gathering on the pier? Linda, have I accurately outlined what we know so far?
Yes, for sure.
I'm trying to read Lori's notes at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. But could I continue and talk about the fundraising portion of it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So basically what we were going to do is we were going to sell the lights by the foot for fundraising, and by the foot or by the string. We were thinking $10 a foot. And at the same time, we are also thinking that we've had such a long relationship or partnership with the municipality of Summerland to get things done that enhance Summerland for all of our constituents. Especially and most recently is Giant's Head Trail, which Ellen has been very involved with, of course. And so what we were thinking was that what we would do is we would pay back the cost of the lights and everything, and then use a portion of the money that we fundraise to augment something that you may think that you may want to do. I know we've heard that there might be something happening in Memorial Park. We of course know that there's the third and fourth section of Giant's Head to do. And so that would be part of our commitment. I do have to take this to the membership of Rotary, but I'm sure that there'd be absolutely no pushback on this at all. But that is just the next part of the puzzle that we've been putting together over the last 3 weeks. Thank you.
So I guess the ask that we have is twofold. One would be permission to move forward with lighting Rotary Pier and the subsequent fenced area along, or chain link fence, in accordance to whatever the electrician for the city agrees to, and providing that the lights are CSA approved. We would ask council's support for that, for doing it as a fundraising event, and for, in turn, providing some money to further support an initiative. And the one that we had talked about, as Linda says, was if the Memorial Park playground project should proceed, would be an ideal one to help support. So I think that is our ask.
Great. Well, thank you for your delegation and providing us with some information on this exciting project. Council, any questions? Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. I'm just wondering about putting lights around the pier and the fenced area. Where would they go, on the railings around the pier, or?
Yes. Yeah. So the electrician was down there and had said, that's why he said that they would install the right hooks to put them on there, so they would be prevented from theft. And also we want to make sure that they're straight and look right and everything. Don't want all us Rotarians putting them up, I don't think, but yeah, he on hooks around
Okay.
around the railing.
And there's no there's no staff concerns about vandalism or breaking the lights or anything like that, because they'll just be waist level more or less, right?
Correct. Oh, Linda?
Are you asking us if there's any staff
I
concerns?
don't know. Did they? I mean, I guess if it's if staff are fine with it, then it's okay with me. I'm just wondering if that was a concern at all.
I know from our point of view, it probably is a concern, but we were considering strapping the cords to the fences and things like that, and making it difficult. but there is a concern. There always is, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Aaron? Oh, sorry.
Me? Yes. Okay. Thanks for your presentation. I really like what you guys have proposed. Just back to Giant's Head for one quick second. I was really excited about that, even though I understand why it can't happen this year. Is there any source of power at Giant's Head at all? Like, I was just thinking, even if we could do maybe 1 or 2 strings on the gates this year and then maybe do something bigger next year, but I don't even know if that's an option or not. Just wondering if anybody knows.
We looked at a number of things, and I don't know if anybody else has more insight, and we'd certainly still like to do something in the mountain if we could find an electrical source, just so people know that that's the bigger plan. We looked at solar And Swiss Solar Tech was very interested in helping us, but we need a fairly sizable battery. And they put us onto a used battery organization in the Lower Mainland, but it was also going to be very costly. So we might fundraise towards that down the road. And so I think if we have the year to get our ducks in a row for it, there's probably a solar option that we could use down the road, unless anyone knows of an electrical source on the mountain or close to the mountain that could be utilized.
Okay, but other than that, that was the biggest hurdle, is that there wasn't any kind of power right now.
That was the main hurdle, was
Okay.
the power. We looked even at generators, and I think there was just concerns around, you know, we would have to get up the mountain to fill them and all of that kind of thing. So solar seems to be the best option in the event that there's no electrical available.
Okay, sounds good. I think the pier is a great second option, and hopefully we can do the Giant's Head grind next year.
Mhm.
Any other questions, Council? Okay, could I have someone bring forward the, I guess, to receive this for information? Or Karen, should we be looking right now at bringing forward a resolution to support this? The two things that Ellen and Linda have spoken to us about.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council, if Council would like to direct staff to work with the Rotary fundraising efforts to put the lights in a specific location, that could be a resolution of Council. Alternately, we could ask them to work with the Rotary fundraising event in a location that meets all of the safety and security protocols.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Trainer.
I'll make that motion, the second one, and that leaves a little bit of flexibility.
Okay.
If everyone else agrees. Do we need a seconder? Oh, Tony's on mute.
Pardon me. I believe Councillor Van Alphen has seconded. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, I guess this, you know, I think the intent is that Rotary and staff can work out something, and if this is the best way for them to work something out, I think the message is we in council support it as long as it works for everybody else.
At least that will be the message once we have a vote on it. We can't make any presumptions here.
No, I'm just asking if it is the message.
Any other points of discussion before I call the question? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, and Mayor Boot and Council. And also, I just wanted to once again say Lori's been just a tremendous assistance in helping to move this forward. So I want to make sure I recognize Lori Mullen. So thank you.
Good. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Linda, as well.
I'm leaving.
Hang on the line. There it is. Oh, okay.
Karen, anybody signed up to speak?
There is one person on the line, Mayor Boot.
Fantastic. Please go ahead. State your name and your address, please.
Hello? Just one.
Hello, can you read me?
There we go. Yes, we can.
Okay.
If you could.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me okay?
We can. If you could turn the video stream off behind you.
How's that?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay, it's John Gordon calling. My address is 8702 Mellon Road. And I've been watching the proceedings there, and I need Linda to put me down for $10 for a foot or a length, whatever that boils down to. Good idea. I'm calling. I actually, when I saw Giant's Head on the agenda, that's why I called. I'm in the middle of doing letters to council and so on about Giant's Head because I live on the side of it. And I was disappointed with, back in the day, I was disappointed with the Bench Designs redevelopment plan and the subsequent, what I considered lack of consideration that was given to feedback offered from user groups at the public meeting regarding that plan. To me, the idea of big entrance signage and stairs and expanded parking and bike downhill course and fences here and there were all pretty much like you'd find in Kelowna. And now the phases 1 and 2 are here. I think I was right, but this isn't Kelowna. And now that it's Summerland, it's just about years gone by. It's been a COVID year. We've had hundreds and maybe thousands of people hiking and enjoying Giant's Head with the road closed, by the way. I thought maybe the focus might move off Giant's Head to more critical infrastructure issues that we have in Summerland, like replacement of the recreation center, for example. So I was surprised to see that back at the end of October, Council had applied for even more senior government grant funds to plow into Giant's Head Park. The $1.6 million project referenced in the application being a larger amount than all 4 phases of the bench plan were originally estimated to cost, and more than twice the amount of money already spent in phases 1 and 2. Plus, $480,000 of that $1.6 million was proposed to come from the municipality. I noted that the Giant's Head project was chosen for the application from a short list of projects because it was essentially ready to go, even though only the redevelopment items contained in phases 1 and 2, there were shortfalls from that, and phases 3 and 4 had ever been revealed and discussed with the Summerland taxpayers and users of Giant's Head. So my question, and then I'll sit back and look at and consider your discussion on it. And I'll also follow up with letters. But my question is, will there be further opportunity for the public through meetings to be involved in the further redevelopment of this park? So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today, and we'll look forward to hearing a comment on that. Thank you.
Acting CAO, could I have you comment on behalf of your staff, please?
Absolutely, your worship. So the Giant's Head plan, I believe, has been developed through consultation with the community. However, depending on where the phases are, I think at any point, council may ask staff to come back to bring the plan back for consideration or just review. And certainly depending on how much work has already gone into the plan itself, there may be areas that can be adjusted or changed. However, I'd have to defer that to probably our Director of Community Services and our Director of Works and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Karen, for that response. And is there anybody else on the line, Ms. Needham? No? Okay.
No others, no.
Okay, thank you, and thank you. I'm not sure if your first name or your last name is Gordon, but thank you for providing some comment today at our meeting. Now on to business items. Beginning with 7.1, Simon Fraser University's Adaptation to Climate Change Team Integrated Climate Action for BC Communities Initiative. And this is a progress update. I will turn this over to Tammy to speak first and then introduce the delegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good afternoon, Council. As outlined in your package, the District of Summerland was invited to participate in Simon Fraser University's Adaptation to Climate Change Team's ICABICI program, the Integrating Climate Action into BC Communities Initiative. And in January of 2019, Council approved Summerland joining that cohort. Since that time, staff have actively worked to further our existing efforts to integrate climate change mitigation, adaptation, and the co-benefits of these actions into the district's operations and planning. Examples of the key ways that we've done so are outlined in your package, and I'm happy to introduce Dr. Alison Shaw, the lead researcher of the Ikabiki Initiative, and Deborah Harford, the executive director of Simon Fraser University's Adaptation to Climate Change team, to share their perspective on Summerland's work with the initiative and the progress that we've made to date. So I'll turn it over to Alison and Deborah for the next few minutes.
Wonderful, thank you so much, Tammy. Alison, are you going to share your screen? Great. And Alison, you're on mute, so you'll need to.
Yeah, there we go.
That's because everyone has to be on mute. We're just doing what we always have to do. Every Zoom call ever.
So can everyone see the PowerPoint? Yes, great. Well, thank you so much for having Deborah and I on the call today. We've been really excited about working with Summerland for the past 2 years, a year and a half, I guess, and are excited to demonstrate what some of that progress looks like. I'm Dr. Alison Shaw. I'm the research lead on the Integrated Climate Action for BC Communities Initiative, and my colleague, Deborah Harford, and I have co-designed this research to move climate action into local government decision processes. And so I'm going to leave it to Deborah to bring you up on the concepts of low carbon resilience and integrated climate action planning. And then I'll get into the details of the work that we've been doing with Summerland. So Deborah.
Great, thank you so much, Alison. Yeah, I'll be extremely brief on this. We're seeing a really tangible and measurable and costly effects on our local governments in Canada through extreme events and slow onset events that are going to increase over the coming decades with climate change that's now unavoidable because of emissions that have already been released and are being released. And obviously, as you guys know, this is stuff like wildfires, floods, heat, drought risks. And at the same time, we've got a real urgency on emissions reduction. You know, last year it was 11 years, this year it's 10 years to get to a manageable level that will hopefully mean that our children have a livable future. Because local governments everywhere are doing both these things, we're trying to look at how you can mainstream these processes to save money, time, and ensure that every dollar you invest is more effectively invested. Asset management is one of the key places this shows up because of the extremely large amount of money we invest in assets, as well as the extremely critical services they provide. The fact that they are one of the principal sources of municipal emissions, and we need to build them so that they can handle flood and heat over time, and ensure that we're not trying to replace and retrofit them before we need to. And this is being exacerbated by the infrastructure deficit. There's a lot of stuff that's going to need replacing or retrofitting, so now's the time to think about this. So can we have the next slide? Thank you. So what we're looking at here is really starting in the bottom left quadrant here, where we have high emissions and high vulnerability, trying to avoid going up to the top left where we may be doing better on the vulnerability, but actually increasing our emissions, or going to the bottom right where we reduce our emissions, but actually increase our vulnerability. And so what we're looking at is going up to the top right quadrant where we reduce emissions and vulnerability, but also strategically think about co-benefits for community priorities such as health, social equity, and biodiversity in the natural environment. So I'm going to hand over to Alison to talk about how we've been exploring that with Summerland, and you know, how excited we are to be working with your community. Thanks.
Thanks, Deborah. So as Deborah noted, the goal of this research is to integrate a low carbon resilience approach into municipal decision making. And what that means, just said a different way, is to reduce communities' risks and vulnerabilities to climate change impacts over time, and to reduce their emissions over time as well. So community emissions. So helping local governments transition to low carbon futures.
And so traditionally, this has been done separately through adaptation planning and mitigation planning, and the type of conceptual approach that we're talking about here, low carbon resilience, is about planning climate action together. And by doing so, there's all kinds of synergies that can be found, as Deborah mentioned. When we do climate actions such as build active transportation routes or utilize our natural assets effectively, we're also building additional benefits for the community, whether it be health benefits or cost savings benefits over time. So the goal is to do climate action in an integrated manner and in a way that aligns with community priorities. And so what we've found in our research to date is that there are 3 pathways to integrating a low carbon resilience approach, otherwise known as integrated climate action approach. The first is in the bottom right or bottom left corner here, and it's called a coordinating approach. It's, are we doing the right things on climate action? Do we have an adaptation plan? Do we have a mitigation plan? Are we looking at ways to cross-reference those plans in order to prevent contradiction and to identify synergies between reducing emissions and reducing our vulnerability? The second pathway is a streamlining pathway. Many communities are using this in their climate action planning approaches. For instance, Port Moody and the City of Nelson are applying this streamlining approach to save resources and capacity and time in order to build out an integrated climate action plan for their communities. And the third approach is the mainstreaming approach, which is really the broader goal of our research, is how to mainstream and embed climate criteria and climate action into decision processes. And it really is asking the question, what are the right things to do? Are we actually, taking current research and applying it in our practices on a daily basis so that we are avoiding or at least minimizing risks and vulnerabilities and damages over time, as well as reducing our emissions over time? And so you'll see in the upper right-hand corner that the District of Summerland is up in the mainstreaming and embedding part of this graphic, which is where we want most of our 13 communities that we're working with to be. And the reason for that is Summerland is actually leading the way. Our work to date with Tammy Rothery, our Sustainability and Alternative Energy Coordinator, has been very exciting because Tammy has been highly motivated on reducing the community's emissions over time and helping Summerland lead the way in terms of reducing risk and vulnerability. And so one of the key projects that we've been working on with Tammy and her team has been how to embed these ideas or these criteria of climate action, reducing risk and reducing emissions, into your corporate strategy or capital investment planning. And so it's been brought to our attention that there is a draft plan coming to council today on this exact topic. And so we're quite excited to hear about how that goes. But in essence, it's essentially thinking about future needs, future assets, and determining how those assets will improve health and safety, obviously comply with regulation, but also reduce the risk and vulnerability of the community over time by ensuring core services are continually functioning, looking at the life cycle impact, for instance, of the assets under different climate change projections, ensuring that they have an advanced lifespan, and also ensuring that the asset or the project is actually helping transition Summerland to a low carbon future. The additional pieces of this exciting work are that some of the decision criteria relate to the co-benefits of these types of approaches. So what does it look like if we're taking action that reduces vulnerability and emissions in Summerland? How does that benefit our environment? How does it benefit our community and our economic development over time? And so what this particular criteria does is it gets the proponent to start thinking about how to help Summerland move to a low carbon and resilient future in terms of its investment and asset planning. So we've worked with Tammy Rothery and her team, as mentioned before, for the past 1.5 years, and we've been really relying on your team for helping us build out practical and effective strategies for local governments. And all of this work that you can see outlined here is going to be summarized in the next year, and it will become an LCR framework, or a low carbon resilience framework for action that communities across Canada will be using. And Summerland has been a leading case community in this. So it's very exciting. In addition to the work on asset management, Summerland has also been really effective to date at thinking about and identifying ways and opportunities to include low carbon resilience and procurement policy and planning, and in other areas such as human resources. And so we've been really excited about the progress being made and the kinds of lessons that we're learning that are being passed on through the peer network across BC, and then finally through this framework for action that we hope to develop by the fall of next year. So thank you very much, and we're definitely open to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Deborah and Allison, for your presentation. Council, questions? No questions? Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. I think, I know personally, I'm proud of what we're doing here in Summerland, and I think we're pulling our weight. But to hear that Summerland is leading the way, I think, oh my goodness, this world's in trouble, because I think we could be doing a lot more. And so when I hear that, I thought, oh, I was hoping we'd be able to learn from other communities rather than other communities learning from us. But my question is specifically to natural assets and incorporating that into our asset management plans and inventory and all that stuff. And do you have any kind of learnings and how you even go about doing that? And how this work can help us incorporate that's the one area for me that I guess I find a little bit confusing on how we incorporate that and how it all fits into everything that we're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. Well, one of our case communities is the town of Gibsons, which of course is the leader on natural asset management. And so Tammy has been involved in the peer learning network for Ikabiki and has been learning from Emmanuel Machado, who's the city manager for Gibsons, hugely responsible for the natural asset work. And there are, for instance, the person I just mentioned is now heading up a non-governmental organization called the Municipal Natural Assets Initiative, which is developing a framework for local governments to use to start applying these concepts on the ground. So how to build a natural assets inventory, the kind of categories that you're looking for in terms of your natural assets, how those assets relate to the core services and the functioning of the municipality, different ways of costing those assets in terms of replacement cost with infrastructure that would be required to replace the services, or additional costing approaches. So that's underway right now, and Deb and I are involved in those conversations as well. And there's lots of case communities undertaking this work across Canada right now. So there's lots of lessons to be learned moving forward. But just so you know, there are frameworks available that are available to help communities do this type of work. In terms of how it relates to what we're talking about, well, as I mentioned, Summerland has been really leading on the emissions reduction side of things with your solar photovoltaics, and you know, your LED street lighting strategies and these kinds of things. The approach that we're taking that might be of interest to Summerland is about how to understand your risks and vulnerabilities at a community level by undergoing a risk and vulnerability assessment, and working together internally and with external partners to identify key risks and priority vulnerabilities over time, so that you can start making decisions now that help to reduce and minimize those vulnerabilities to climate impacts over time, as well as save costs and avoiding or minimizing the damages associated with those risks and vulnerabilities. And then in our approach, we start with the risk and vulnerability assessment and then bring in the emissions reduction opportunities as well, so that you're looking at ways to reduce risk and also reduce your emissions simultaneously, so that it's cost effective, it aligns with the work that you're already doing at the community scale, and you start embedding these kinds of ideas into your decision processes moving forward. Of course, having a risk and vulnerability assessment and an emissions inventory and forecast also helps with investment planning and asset management decisions, land use planning decisions, transportation planning decisions, pretty much every other aspect that municipality has to deal with, including stormwater management, which is a primary window for people to look at natural assets as a priority. So there's lots that can be done. There's lots that can be streamlined, and the real goal of Deb and my work and the work that we're doing with Tammy and other coordinators and champions across the province is, how do we do this work most effectively, and how do we streamline it so that it actually saves a municipality money and aligns the roles and responsibilities across the organization in ways that are low carbon and resilient into the future.
Great. Councillor Barkwill, just before you ask your question, I just wanted to do a bit of a follow-up on what the question and the response we just heard, just so we don't get off of this track. First of all, I'm really happy to see the natural assets management coming into, the national assets inventory coming into asset management. I know this is something Tammy and I have talked quite a bit about in the last couple of years. And especially now that council has added a watershed management strategy to our list of strategic priorities for the remainder of this term. My question is for Tammy. Tammy, will you be part, or will you carry on maybe being part of the Municipal Natural Assets Initiative?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So at this point, we are not formally engaged with the initiative, but we do participate in webinars. And of course, through the Ikabiki initiative, I'm connected with Emmanuel Machado, who Allison mentioned. So council's already shown a lot of leadership in this regard in terms of approving a policy around asset management that specifically includes a direction to look at natural assets. So I think, you know, Councillor Holmes, to your comments about, you know, if this is it, then we're in trouble. I think one of the things that I'll just sort of mention is that a lot of communities know what the right things are to do, but it doesn't mean that their elected leaders are taking those steps to do them. And so I think when we talk about Summerland's leadership, it's really about council moving forward with these things and approving and directing staff to move these things forward. And I will say we're definitely learning as much as I hope that we're getting out. I'm definitely learning a lot from the initiative. It's not just us contributing, we're also getting a lot back. So Mayor Boot, we're definitely continuing to look at natural assets as directed by policy from council. And we'll, if you'd like us to more formally engage with the initiative, staff can of course explore opportunities to do that and report back.
Thank you, Tammy. And maybe that's a discussion that council can have in the future. Councillor Barkwell.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned photovoltaics, and I've been looking into the issue of the life cycle analysis for greenhouse gas emissions for photovoltaics versus the hydro that we currently consume. And all the research that I can find shows that the photovoltaics, I'll shorten that to PV, create 3 to 4 times the life cycle greenhouse gases than our current hydro supply is. Our consultant from Fractal now admits that the information he gave us at our public hearing was completely wrong. And he sent some studies. I've reviewed the studies. So do you have any information that suggests that PVs are any better than our current hydro? Admitting, they have the rates from BC Hydro here. They take into the fact that it's a blended sources and such. So basically all the research I can get, even the research papers sent to us by our consultants for our solar project says that the solar is worse than our hydro supplies.
And that's true for British Columbia. It's hard to justify, any kind of alternative energy because of the cheap renewable hydro. However, in our research, what we're finding is municipalities are interested in energy security as well. And, with big macro kind of oriented supply grids, whether it's hydroelectricity or otherwise, all of that transmission is susceptible and vulnerable to extreme weather events, to different climate impacts that are projected over time. And so a lot of municipalities are looking at ways to build their alternative energy as an energy security kind of initiative over time, as well as, just in support of building out the industry and helping with local economy effects and those kinds of things. But to your point, I don't personally have it at my fingertips what the cost basis of that or the GHG emissions life cycle of those types of things would be, but we could probably look into that more. It sounds like you've already done a lot of research. Deb, do you have anything to contribute?
No, but it's such a great question, and we are blessed with this fabulous, hydro energy here in BC. And I agree, we need to look very carefully at renewables and look at the implications across the board. But as Alison says, we are seeing that also in a lot of rural communities, rural First Nations, etc. as well, where if you're going to look for energy security, in what we may see bigger and bigger extreme events, floods, fires knocking out transmission lines, that kind of thing, then at least if you are using backup energy and it's renewable, then it's better than using diesel generators, for instance. But definitely a calculation that needs to be done, and we're more looking at the ways to streamline the decision making than doing the energy inventories ourselves. But as Alison says, we can, I'm sure, help a bit if there's interest there. Just back on the natural assets as well. One of the really important things that the Municipal Natural Assets Initiative is doing is drafting practice guidelines for engineers with the Engineers and Geoscientists of BC Professional Association, because engineers are so important when designing, for instance, projects that are going to deal with large floods, that kind of thing. And because they need technical specifications, it's been a slow process for the engineering community to start to really work with the natural assets concept. But they're really making great strides right now, and we can share that information with Tammy. We also have a report that's designed to be pretty accessible that we can also share with Tammy if people are interested in seeing it, on accounting for natural assets, giving a whole bunch of case studies for existing natural assets projects from across Canada, from other municipalities. So if that's just of interest, because there's interest in your council, then we'd be happy to share that as well.
Councillor Barkle, do you have a follow-up question? No.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have just one other one for, I think it's for Allison this time. You were talking about the risks and vulnerability assessment, and we saw in your slide deck the LCR decision criteria. I'm wondering if that decision, like that matrix, I guess, is that part of the risks and vulnerability assessment, or are they not connected at all?
So do you mean the criteria matrix associated with the projects over $10,000?
Yeah, like that decision-making thing that we're going to be hearing more about later on in this meeting.
Right, okay. They are connected. However, Summerland has leapt into decision-making on risk and vulnerability and emissions reduction, and applying that in policy is the real leading edge aspect to this particular piece. However, in order to assess or have a project proponent assess risk and vulnerability, it's easier on them to have a risk and vulnerability assessment to draw from that's been done by the municipality. So to date, I believe that Summerland has that on your roster of things that you're planning to do. And I would highly, highly encourage that, because a risk and vulnerability assessment gives a little bit more detail as to how climate change is going to impact your community over time, through, drought, wildfires, heat days, all of these kinds of things that I'm sure you're all familiar with. And it just provides a level of empirical data that can be analyzed by project proponents, so that they can start effectively thinking about how to help your community reduce those types of risks over time. And then that becomes part of the decision criteria, how the proponent is actually thinking about this and helping your community move into a low carbon resilient future. Yeah.
Good, thank you. That's a good, clear answer to that question. Anyone else? All right. So then could I have somebody bring forward the resolution, please? And I'll ask you to read it. Anyone? Thank you, Councillor Barkwell.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Got caught. But the Simon Fraser University's Adaptation to Climate Change Team Integrated Climate Action for BC Communities Initiative Progress Update That's a long handle. Report from the Sustainability Alternative Energy Coordinator dated November 23rd, 2020 be received for information.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Carlson. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor? And I can't see Councillor Van Elfen, so I will assume that he's in favor. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for this really informative presentation. It's great to have these updates when there's so much has been going on. So thank you so much, and very much appreciate the two folks from Deborah and Allison from SFU and Tammy for all of the hard work that you keep doing on behalf of the district. It's so great to hear that we're leading in this area. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you to the leadership of council. That's fantastic.
Thanks.
Great. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, Tammy, you're stealing the show today. Next thing, electric vehicle charging stations, an update on the network expansion. Hello, Councillor Patton.
Hello, Madam Mayor. I didn't want to butt in during the presentation, so I just kept my video screen off.
I will ask you and Councillor Barkwell to mute your microphones, please. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks again, Council, for putting up with me for a few agenda items here. I wanted to just quickly, as outlined in your package, provide a presentation on an update regarding the district's electric vehicle charging network expansion. So Council will recall that a total of 24 new stations were approved in the 2020 budget, which include 16 additional public level 2 stations, 6 public level 3 stations or fast chargers, and 2 level 2 stations that are for district fleet vehicles and staff to use at the Works and Infrastructure building. Now, these installations have already started, and I'm happy to announce that just this morning, the Memorial Park installation was signed off on as being fully complete, and our first fast chargers are now active. So Memorial Park now has 2 fast chargers and 8 level 2s open for the community to use at any time. The Municipal Hall installations will be completed this week, and staff are actively working on scheduling the remaining installations at the Works Office, Summerland Resort, Visitor Center, and Post Office. And while there have been significant delays in implementing the installation plan due to staff capacity related to COVID-19, staff do expect that the overall project will be completed on time and on budget. That concludes the summary of my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Tammy. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So are we in a position that those charging stations are going to be, they can use their credit card to pay for charging, or however it is? Is that set up on those machines at this point? Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair. So yes, all of our stations have capacity for charges to be implemented and credit cards to be used, as well as membership services. Users can tap with their cards. As council will recall, you directed us to bring back a fees and charges bylaw that included charges for these stations. Now, until that bylaw is put in, the stations are free, but staff are bringing that forward in the coming weeks here. And we expect that the recommendation for that bylaw will be with an active date of January 1st. So starting January 1st, we can log in. It's a live process. It takes 30 seconds to go in, implement the fee, and make it active. So we would expect if council were to approve that bylaw amendment, as we expect you will based on the conversation, then those fees will become active as soon as that bylaw is.
Councillor Barkwell and then Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, could you refresh my memory here? How much does it cost the district for in terms of electricity for a fast charge? I'm going to guess it's maybe not much, since it can't be that much different than a slow charge.
Thanks. Through the chair, I'll have to just pull up my report. I don't have that number in front of me, but it's not much different than a fast charge. And it all depends on the vehicle when it pulls up, the state of charge. Is it full? Is it not? Do they choose to fully charge up? Are they just getting a quick fill? It's sort of like when you go to the gas station, right? You can put in $2 or $100, sort of depends on what you're after, but I can pull that number up in just a moment here, Councillor Barkwell.
I was just, while you're doing that, I was just sort of thinking, oh, are we going to be like, is it going to be like a great deal of more electricity given away because we have fast chargers? But I'm guessing maybe not. That it's not going to suddenly be discovered as free and have a lineup of people at them.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. I wonder if I could be reminded about the locations and how we chose the locations that we did choose, and why we didn't consider places like the arena or the swimming pool, was it a cost factor that the more locations you have it in, the more it costs? Was that a factor? If I could just be reminded, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Through the chair. So staff did look at a number of locations and brought forward some for council's consideration, and council made the final determination on where those locations were to be. Part of staff's research and recommendations were around existing district-owned properties that had three-phase power and or were in strategic locations in terms of visibility, accessibility to amenities and to commercial amenities in the area. So those specific areas that you mentioned, Councillor, I don't recall us looking at the arena too closely, to be quite honest. And the pool is not our property. So it's the school district's property, so which is would present a problem from the funder's perspective. So those are the reasons that I recall as part of that discussion and staff's recommendations behind the locations.
And could I follow up? And then the two at the visitor center, at the time, I think we were in contact with the Chamber of Commerce and they were okay with that, and do we know, are they still okay with that?
Thank you. Through the chair, staff did a presentation at the Chamber's board meeting where we discussed further with them the plan to put the chargers at their location, and we did not receive any feedback from the board asking us to go back to council with any proposed changes in that regard. So as far as we know, they're still quite happy as of that meeting to have our chargers there.
Thank you.
Councillor Barkwell.
Yes, I was at the chamber meeting, and nobody seemed to express many opinions. One person thought, well, why would we need two at that location? Another person was quite insistent that they didn't need any up there and they should all be downtown. But in the end, they were all so concerned about the idea that we were giving power away and not charging at that time that they never really seemed to come to any kind of conclusion, and just sort of, kind of just accepted it rather than decided on things. Personally, I certainly don't see the rationale that was originally discussed when we made that decision, that people would come in and look at maps and stuff. I sent you all a link to all the charging stations that people would have on their phone. It shows all the charging stations that are currently in place, all the restaurants, all the hotels, all the information that they would get. The Chamber of Commerce, nobody goes in there for a hard copy map anymore. It's a bad location in that you can't turn left going north on the highway. And there, of course, there won't be anybody there for, you know, outside business hours anyway. I just wondered if there's any will on council to revisit the choice of locations.
Councillor Trainer and then Councillor Holmes.
I just want to check and see if we can even be having this discussion, because we've already submitted the grant and it was approved, I believe what Tammy said, based on the locations that we were that we provided them with. So I guess my question is there a point to having this discussion if it would jeopardize what the work that we're already doing?
I can try to answer that through the chair, Madam Mayor, if that's okay. So councillors, we did have a discussion with the funder to ask them the question, what would a potential change in location look like? They did express some concern about sort of the late hour of the ask, but understood things change. And they said we would have to submit a new plan of where we're planning to put the chargers with a new cost breakdown. And that would be up for their approval, their consideration for approval. Some of the factors that they mentioned were wanting to maintain co-location. So that is that they wouldn't be interested in splitting out, moving, let's say, the level 3 chargers at the post office and keeping the level 2s there, for example. They'd want them all to move together, and as well to keep them spread out throughout the community. They're looking to maintain multiple locations throughout the community. So they did sort of let us know that any move to further consolidate the stations may not be approved. Part of their strategy is to keep them spread out. So there is an opportunity for us to submit a new plan, but it is up for the funder to approve. And of course, we couldn't say either way how that might go. Madam Mayor, when you're ready, I do have a response for the question that Councillor Barkwell asked earlier.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. Let's go with that first and then to Councillor Holmes.
Great. So yes, Councillor Barkwell. So level 2 stations consume approximately 7.2 kilowatt hours per hour. And we would expect that a normal charge would take 2 to 3 hours. So somewhere in the 14 to 21 kilowatt hour range. Whereas level 3 consumes approximately 50 kilowatt hours per hour. However, we expect that drivers will typically only be charging for about 20 to 30 minutes. So somewhere in the 25 or less kilowatt hour range. So very close, long story short, in terms of how much energy is consumed between a level 2 and a level 3, a negligible difference.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Holmes, then Councillor Van Elfen.
Yeah, thank you. I think, you know, with the pandemic, things have changed with tourism. And so I think there is certainly an argument, if not putting both of those chargers somewhere else, at least one of them somewhere else. Probably one at the visitor center would be sufficient. Though I guess it all depends on where it would go and the cost, the difference to us for installation and that sort of thing. But I would certainly be open to moving either one or both of those two on the highway.
Councillor Van Elfen, then Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Holmes. After some time and thinking about this more and more, his suggestion of the arena parking lot makes a lot of sense to me. And a question through to Tammy. I know we're going to put some up at the Public Works yard for future, hopefully electric vehicles in our fleet, plus employees in the district that may be running an electric vehicle. But we have a lot of municipal vehicles also parked at the arena, like in behind and in the compound that the Parks and Rec staff leave there overnight. So in the future, I'm sure we're going to start electrifying those fleets also, like those vehicles, I'd hope. So maybe the arena parking lot might be a place of interest, maybe one in the parking lot and one in, accessible to the municipality's fleet for the future. But I think the arena parking lot, I think we get better bang for our buck than at the chamber office. Thank you.
Certainly, council staff are happy to look into any location that you'd like us to and bring back more information. One comment that I can make, though, is that additional locations always have a base cost, right? And every additional station that we add at a certain location costs much less than the first. The first one is always the most expensive because we have to bring the power and do the civil works. So if we're talking about, for example, splitting up the 2 level 3s at the visitor center, we can expect probably some additional budget requirements. So I would have to, I don't want to give you top of the mind numbers. We would need to do some work and bring that back with some actual facts, but just generally speaking, that we would have an expectation that there would be some additional costs because you're revisiting those base installation costs at multiple locations.
Councillor Carlson and Councillor Barkle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't part of the conversations back in January when the decisions were made on these locations, so I can't necessarily comment too much on that. I think that it's an interesting conversation that's being had right now, though, because on one hand, last time we talked about stations, it was because the majority of council thought that we should be charging money and getting revenue from these stations. And that was aside from what the conversation used to be, which was let's bring people downtown to, well, only used to be let's bring people downtown. So now we're having a conversation about bringing people to our core, but also charging them for that that service that we're providing them and for that electricity that they're using. So we have a huge component of that project, which will be doing that, 20 of the stations, let's say. 2 stations out at the Visitors Information Center, why are we not looking at those as simply a revenue generation? Whether or not they go into the Visitor Center for a map or they stop and check their internet or they, have something to do. I think that in the same way that people stop in Summerland to go to the gas station, we don't expect all of those people to come downtown, but they do drop some money into our community, even if it's just through paying for fuel. So I'll just throw that one out there. I don't know if that's necessarily the answer, but it is something that I think needs to be considered. Having highway stations could be a different kind of benefit. And because it's not the majority of our stations, perhaps it's easier than trying to go all the way back to the funder and ask for a change at this hour. But that's just something to ask, I guess, and think about.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Councillor Barkle, followed by Councillor Holmes.
Yes, each of the level 2 stations, which are the ones that we're talking about here, roughly speaking, they said, I think we're $100,000 a piece to put in. I imagine one station at the Chamber of Commerce site might be 150,000, and the next one and the second one 50,000 if power isn't very close. Being how close you are to a phase 3 power apparently seems to be an important factor. I don't think we were really given any information about the relative costs of various locations. I always argued that there's municipal land there behind the Legion and between the Legion or the creek and the highway, and that would be a great spot as far as being close to the highway and also close enough for people to walk over and get a burger while they're being charged or a cup of coffee or something, whereas that sort of opportunity isn't available at the Chamber of Commerce site. So I think if we're going to reconsider, we also need to reconsider it with the relative costs of some potential locations, such as the arena, which probably has power at it, versus the site I just described over by Max, right in behind Max, and the Legion and any others that people can think of, and then make a decision based on how far our money will go as well. I'm sorry, I didn't hear all of Councillor Carlson's thing. That the internet kind of went wonky there, but I think I got the gist of it.
Councillor Carlson, did you want to reiterate what you said, or?
No, I think that if you got the gist of it, that's fine. I just want to just put that point out there to think about it. I'm not telling you what to do or how to make a decision, because I'm not sure. I just think it's worth remembering that if you want revenue, perhaps that'll be our best revenue generator.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, I hear Councillor Carlson's points. I think there is a risk of overthinking this. And if we see those are level 3 chargers on the highway, not level 2, so they're the fast chargers. So if we think those purely in terms of somebody, making a pit stop for a quick recharge, then we should probably be charging them even more for those 2 stations, and just think of it as a revenue generator. So I'm okay with that as well.
Councillor Van Alphen, then Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I still, I think I like the arena parking lot idea. I'm open to other suggestions also. My only concern with the chamber is this is, I don't know if the word infancy is the correct word, but you're going to see in the very, very near future, the Esso, the Max convenience store, will have a charger. 7-Eleven is going to have a charger. The Shell station will have a charger. People will prefer to whip into there for a quick charge, use the washroom facilities for, say, get a cup of coffee or a beverage, and then be on their merry way. But, so will the ones at the chamber on the highway become redundant over time? So maybe putting it somewhere like the arena parking lot would be, a benefit, in the future. It's just a thought. I thought I'd throw it out there on the table. Thank you.
Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes reminded me of why people often stop to get gas, and that's because they want to make what he called a pit stop. And there's no washing facilities up at the chamber that would be open to the public all the time, like there would be down at the Five Corners location. And then Councillor Van Alphen makes me think, well, yeah, what if the gas stations put their own charging stations in? Maybe ours would be redundant down there. I wonder how long, but they would be even less redundant up there on the highway if the gas stations ever put their own charging stations in. So there's lots to consider here. And I'm still leaning towards thinking that whatever location we might come up with, the ones there are probably the least favorable place to put a couple of fast stations. I agree that on the highway would be good, but maybe closer to Five Corners, or I can't think, or the IGA parking lot where there's food down there too, something like that. Of course, it all depends on the availability of the power and the relative costs. So I think we need more information.
Any other questions? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I truly, well, as you all know, I am a proponent of user pays, and I do think that the chamber probably isn't the best use. When we talk about availability of three-phase power, that's the arena. And if we're going to talk about revenue generation, we know that we have citizens that their boys or their girls will be in playing hockey or curling, whatever the case may be. and we could be generating revenue there. I'm just thinking that I have to agree with Councillor Barkwell that it may be a little more prudent just to go and find out maybe there's cost savings of going at the arena. Who knows? But I don't think that, not a knee-jerk reaction, but I think that it doesn't hurt to get the full story and maybe a more robust picture than just saying, okay, well, let's put it up at the Chamber of Commerce, because I have to agree that I don't think that is probably the best use of. Is there revenue generation? Sure, there will be, but I think there may be more at the arena. Anyways, thank you.
Councillor Holmes?
I would bring forward a motion if anybody's looking for one.
I just have one comment that I'd like to make to Tammy. Are there any other questions? Okay, Tammy, I had discussed this with Karen, and she has given me some assurance, but I just wanted to bring it forward so that council is aware of the discussion as well. With our downtown neighborhood plan, I had expressed some concern about the five charging stations, including one level 3 that were going in by the post office. We all know that that's district-owned land, and it could be it could interrupt or interfere with a change of land use there, other than a parking lot. But then, thank you, when she had her CAO hat on, she suggested that, we're just at the beginning of the downtown neighborhood plan task force, which will take some time. And then anything that might come up in terms of a development there would be probably beyond our term even. So, I think that I am feeling comfortable enough that those are great locations in the interim, in the 2 or 3 or 5 year interim. So I just wanted to share that I'd had that conversation with our acting CAO / corporate officer. Okay, so back to you, Councillor Holmes. You wanted to bring forward a resolution for consideration?
Sure, I'll move that staff review the location of the 2 EV chargers at the visitor center and bring back recommendations. And that recommendation may be keep them where they are, but I'd like to hear from staff.
Councillor Van Alphen, you're seconding that? Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Traynor.
Yeah, at the beginning of this discussion, I was a bit concerned that that we might jeopardize our funding for this, but if Tammy says that it's okay, that we can reconsider the locations, that makes me feel better. Tammy, do you need like more specific direction in terms of the exact locations? I can't remember if Councillor Holmes had put that in his motion or not. You didn't? Okay. So do you need specifics then? Or I'm just thinking if there's any other locations that we should include in that, so nothing else gets missed and we don't have to consider this again.
Would it be helpful to have the arena as one of the comparator locations?
Council, from my perspective, certainly I've heard some specific suggestions, and if there are other specifics, I'd be happy to get that information. What I think would be most helpful for staff is actually to understand a little bit more about your strategic approach to the stations, and if revenue generation is what you're looking for in terms of priority. Is it bringing people into commercial areas and so on? So I've heard some comments, but if there's a bit of consensus around those, I think that will help inform staff. I mean, staff are aware of what locations we own that have 3-phase power, so we can sort of narrow down based on that and the specific comments you have. But strategically, if there's any more direction or comments that you have, I think that would be most helpful at this point.
Councillor Barkle, did you have your hand up?
Yes, and actually, I was just going to say the same thing as Councillor Trainer in that, you know, can we just sort of informally say, well, give a list of locations we'd like you to consider, something a little bit, yeah, just to make sure that something that we thought was important. We didn't mention the arena in the motion. We didn't mention the Five Corners location. There could be others. I understand the idea that the funders don't want to see them all congregated together, but I think they're thinking largely of larger communities than Summerland. Because and the other point I would make is that I think our best revenue generation is from travelers, because people will be able to fill up at home much cheaper than our current rate schedule. So unless they're low and want to top up or something, I don't think they'd be necessarily willing to pay our rates.
Okay, so things are getting a little bit muddier. You know, we've heard from two councillors about perhaps providing a couple of ideas on other possible locations. And we've also heard from Tammy that it would be useful for her to know what council's objectives are with this. Is it revenue generation, or, you know, bringing people into the downtown core? Where is it that we're going with this? Councillor Trainer, and then Councillor Holmes.
We've already got several chargers downtown, so I think we're covered that way. Like, we've got the post office and we've got Memorial Park. So these two that were at the visitor center, I think initially we had thought of those as more of a convenience for people driving through, and that they could stop and go into the chamber and then maybe come into town, but otherwise keep going on their way. So to me, I see these a bit more of a revenue generator and or a convenience to our citizens. So for example, if they're going to play hockey, they can charge while they're doing that. So that would be my kind of strategy behind these two, is more of a revenue and convenience, either for our own residents or for travelers, as opposed to the goal of having people come downtown. Because like I said, we're kind of already covered there. And also, if we are going to provide Tammy with a list, I thought if it's not too difficult, if we could just get some information on the Sani dump pullout down in Trout Creek. Because that's really busy in the summer and really well used by people. And I don't know what kind of money we're making off of that, but it's a nice place to stop and there's lots of space. So if we have power down there and it's not too expensive, maybe we could put that on the list as well for consideration.
Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, thanks you. I think, you know, for the level 3 chargers, the direction has always, the vision has always been seen as a money generator. I think that's always been the case, and that's why, you know, we stuck them out on the highway. The level 2s, it's more of, you know, more service, but either way, I think it's, you know, in terms of locations, it's where they're going to be used the most. And, you know, really that's what it comes down to. I think the nice thing about the arena is that there is a lot of traffic in and out of there, and people staying for kind of a couple hours and then moving on, and more people coming in, staying for a couple hours. So that's kind of the interesting thing about the arena, I think. I don't know if we really need to amend the motion to include specific locations. I think Tammy's got that figured out. So I don't think that's necessary, but in terms of strategic direction, that's the way I just see it, is where are they going to be used? Because ultimately that's what we want. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Unless there is somebody that wishes to amend that motion or bring forward a friendly amendment. No, okay, and is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. Maybe I could have you again read the motion that's on the floor, which, because it's different from what's in our agenda. Karen, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the original motion is that the electric vehicle charging stations network expansion update report dated November 23rd, 2020 from the Sustainability Alternative Energy Coordinator be received for information. And the motion that's been added to that is, and that staff review the EV chargers at the visitor center and return to council with more information.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. But don't run away yet, Tammy. The next item on our agenda is the 2019 Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program, also known as CARIP, and the survey that's connected to that. Thank you, Tammy.
Great. Thanks, Council, once more for your time and attention today. So as you know, Council, each year staff complete the CARIP, Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program survey, and report the results to the province, the public, and directly to you, our community's elected leaders. This year, due to COVID-19, the reporting deadline was extended, which is why you're receiving this report much later than in past years, and why it might seem strange to still be talking about 2019 midway through November. That said, the survey is included in your package, and some highlights are outlined in the staff report. A couple of items I'd like to speak to specifically and draw your attention to are, firstly, although corporate emissions rose from 2018 to 2019 by 3%, overall, we are still trending downwards in our corporate emissions by 8.5% as a decline since our baseline year of 2016. Secondly, fuel use has dropped across all categories other than natural gas and propane, with staff understanding that these increases were directly related to weather and increased creek maintenance, respectively. And finally, while we were expecting a rebate of $39,000 for the carbon tax paid in 2019, we found that we were actually entitled to a rebate of $42,000. However, due to COVID-19, the province had automatically rebated our communities with the 2018 amounts, which in our case was $33,000, leaving us with $9,000 less than what we were entitled to. Staff have contacted the ministry, and Acting Mayor Holmes, while Mayor Boot was away, signed a letter to the ministry outlining our concerns with this approach and asking them to reconsider this so that we could address this discrepancy in our budgeting. We will continue to update council as we're able to on the status of this matter, and hopefully communities across the province will make their voices heard, and the ministry will respond. That concludes the summary of my report, and again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Tammy. Councillors, any questions for Tammy? Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. Could I wonder if you can just explain to me how creek maintenance, why so much propane is required for creek maintenance?
I may have to defer that to our Director of Works and Infrastructure who's on the line, but my understanding is that the equipment that's used in the creek maintenance is fueled by propane. And because we had quite an increase in creek maintenance requirements in 2019, that was the commensurate increase. I believe it was about 11% over previous years. So I would say not a moderate increase, I would call that. But Chris, I'm not sure if you can clarify if I've misinterpreted anything there.
No, that's correct.
Good. Councillor Holmes again.
Yeah, just maybe more explanation of what kind of equipment this is. Is it a dredger, a propane run dredger, or what? Sorry, I'm not a creek maintenance guy.
I'm not a creek maintenance gal, so I'll have to defer that one back over to Chris again.
Sorry, I don't have the details for you, Councillor Holmes, but definitely can get that to council if you would like.
Councillor Holmes, does it matter? No. Okay. Just a question of interest. That's good.
One comment I can make, Councillor Holmes and Council, is that staff are always looking for opportunities to upgrade our equipment to low carbon options. We've done so in the past with some of our parks maintenance equipment. And so we're always looking for those opportunities, and this might be a good one to narrow in on in the coming year. So we'll bring that forward for discussion.
Okay, good. Councillor Barkwell.
Does this CARB reporting go into real detail, like if we replaced our 2-cycle lawnmowers for parks with electric lawnmowers, would that be captured, or is that sort of too immaterial?
Great question. So through the mayor, all of the information that's captured in the CAREP reporting, and specifically the numbers, the percentages, are around our fuel use. So any change in fuel use would be captured in the reporting. How we got to those changes in fuel use are something that staff have to dig into a little bit behind the scenes. So we could extrapolate from the data, but what shows up in CAREP is strictly around the fuel use in our corporate operations.
If I can follow up?
Yes, of course.
Did they make a distinction between, say, diesel fuel and ordinary gasoline, and in particular 2-cycle mixed fuel? Because I mean, we all know that our 2-cycle engines are really bad for the environment.
So we do track gasoline separately from diesel, and we divide diesel into regular diesel and what we call marked diesel. So we do have that information, but it shows up in the CAREP reporting under the single category of diesel because they have the same emissions.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Well, sorry, I didn't hear the answer. It froze up. I didn't hear about the 2-cycle, whether that's tracked, 2-cycle fuel.
So sorry, Councillor. So we do, and I'm not a technical fuel person either, so forgive me if I'm misunderstanding your question, but we do track 2 types of diesel, what we call regular diesel and marked diesel. No, something different?
We're not talking about diesel. Marked gas is just like in the diesel for off-road use. I'm talking about 2-cycle is when you add oil to the gasoline for your lawnmower, that type of, and that's they're very particularly dirty emissions and something that we should all be trying to get rid of. And I wondered whether they deal with that. Maybe since you're not aware of it, then they haven't got to that level.
Yeah, apologies. No, as far as I'm aware, we don't track that in level of detail.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Will our new electric Zamboni be calculated in next year's numbers?
Yes, so the report that's in front of you today shows the calendar year of 2019 and our emissions associated with that. So our electric Zamboni will show up in the 2020 report that will be presented in 2021.
Okay, if there aren't any more questions, could I have someone bring forward receiving this report for information, please? Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Traynor, all in favor? Great, thank you. So next up is our, first of all, thank you to the delegation that is waiting so patiently, or maybe I don't see them anymore, so maybe they're taking a bit of a break again. But over to Chris, I think, for the project prioritization framework.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to share my screen here. Can you guys see that? All right. Yeah, so this report is to give council an update on the business case and project prioritization framework initiative that we've been working on for the past approximately 9 months. For those of you who aren't familiar with this graphic on the cover page, this is the asset management wheel from Asset Management BC. So where we're at with this project on the wheel is in the green here around the implementation section of it. So starting to take some of the learnings that we have with our asset management policy and strategy and putting it into practice on setting our budgets in this case. So first slide here is just you guys seen this last week during the utility budget presentations, but it's a representative figure from our strategy that shows our previous capital budget process, how our services are basically a result of the process. They're not something that's set or tracked at the onset, and not setting a target that we're looking to achieve. It's a result of what are our known infrastructure needs, what monies do we have available, what projects can we deliver, and the services are the result of that. So we've seen this as an opportunity to change how we do our capital planning. So we're looking to make more strategically aligned decisions, basically, and then using a set criteria that we're then ranking and scoring those projects on. And a lot of that scoring includes things such as benefits, costs, risks, looking at full life cycle costs versus just the initial capital cost. So trying to get a more wholesome process when we go to set our priorities, and something that we can document and show this is how we came to the priorities that we've set forward for council. So in the asset management policy, there was 6 key principles that were listed, one of them being responsible decision making, which is highlighted there in red. So looking at it a little closer, it echoes some of the things that I've talked about already. So looking to balance level of service, risk, and whole life costs. 4.1.4 talks about ensuring that business cases are clearly identify the needs, consider options, look at whole life costs and revenues, and is documented for evidence moving forward. So that's really the essence of this process that we went through. So here's a slide looking at this evolved investment planning process from our strategy. This project in particular looks at the orange and blue sections of this process. So what are the solutions, and how can we rank those into a priority moving forward? But at the start of it in the green there, it looks at what are council's strategic priorities and what is their strategic plan, and using that to feed into this process. And then in the purple there looks at things such as risks, pressures from either customers, regulations, growth, climate change, and how do those feed into how we rank our priorities. So taking all of that, we created sort of a step-by-step process to start from initiating a project in a business case. How do we expand on that and get more information into that, and look at scoring it and ranking against some general criteria that's consistent amongst our projects, getting a project prioritized list that comes out of that, and then using that to help guide us when we're setting our budgets. So specifically for what I was hoping to get some discussion or some support from council today was looking at the criteria shown here, which is what staff had used to rank and score the projects against one another. So at the top, there are three categories, which once we picked a project, we had to identify what was the primary benefit of that project. Was it looking to improve or increase the level of service, or was it maintaining or restoring a service that we already had, either at the same capacity or an increased capacity? And then all of the criteria listed in 3.2, every project was scored against that. So you'll see the different weightings, and obviously higher weightings put on things such as compliance and health and safety. Second most were the resiliency and the life cycle financial impact, and then GHG reductions along with the co-community benefits with environmental, social and cultural and economic that were listed in there as well. So obviously the intent of this is that it's not a perfect science. You're not going to get you will get a score for everything, but there's a lot of ambiguity potentially in the middle of the pack on this priority list, but it really separates the high importance ones from maybe the ones that aren't as important, that are ones that should be considered to be deferred. Or when you go to set your budgets, it gives you that initial set of priorities and a list, but there may be other reasons to bring projects forward, which staff and council still have the ability to do through the current budget process that we do. This is just another tool to help us guide us in that process. So I took one of our slides from our capital budget for utilities. This is the water capital budget, and this is highlighted in red is the column that we've added to these sheets for this year. and look to include in the upcoming years, just to give council an indication on what the rank out of this prioritization process was. And as you'll see, some of the ones that maybe were higher ranked are shown lower at the bottom here and are forecasted out into the 4th and 5th year of our 5-year financial plan. But there are various reasons, whether it was capacity for the various staff in those areas that are going to be implementing the work, whether the projects needed what the funding source was, whether it was grant funding, whether it was borrowing, or whether there was just in staff's mind, or maybe in previous discussions with council's mind, a reason to put a project higher up. So with that concludes the overview of the prioritization. If there are any questions or statements from council, I'm happy to answer them.
Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the effort to quantify the decisions, although it still winds up being a very subjective process. No matter how hard you try to make it objective, and it starts with the relative weights that you give the various factors. It seems to me that there could be times when something such as health and safety becomes 100%. You know, if the WCB says you can't, you have to put rails along the, the intake or something like that, then you don't really have a choice. Is there sort of a room to adjust those relative weights when you're considering different projects and such? And how do you take into account that sort of thing?
Yeah, so thank you, Councillor. Yeah, so obviously that's where the compliance and the health and safety ones had a weighting of 20%, whereas some of the other ones were 3 or 5%. And so those projects would definitely score higher in those areas and would naturally be elevated to the top of the prioritization list. That being said, if there are things that have to get done, no matter what, it's a compliance requirement, and we have to do it next year. Even though we put it through this process and we get a rank, we still manually will pull that one to the top of next year's capital plan. So it's just like I said, it's just another tool to help us have some level of determination, and ideally where we'd like to get to is have council, like I said, support or provide any input to make adjustments to this criteria, so that when we're coming to council with the initial proposed budgets, it's more in line with these criteria and with council's thoughts on these different items, rather than just staff's initial cut. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question, Councillor Barkwell.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. I guess we can always choose to be out of compliance. I think we've done that. We do that in the landfill. But my question is, so it would be impossible for the ranking for somebody to get 100%, because the project rationale, it's one of the three. It's not all three. Is that correct?
Correct. There are, yeah. The intent is to pick one of those. So it's not that any project would get 100%. No, that's not possible. And the majority of projects, even in the common criteria, they will score high in one or two areas and lower in the others. And so it really depends on what is that main driving criteria for the project. If it's one of compliance or health and safety, and that's the area where it gets the highest score, then it'll likely be pulled up to the top. If the main criteria on why this is coming forward is for GHG reduction, and it doesn't really fit or score high on anything else, then naturally it's going to be lower on the overall list, but it may, like I said, be pulled up for other reasons. So it's really not a score of 0 to 100. It's more just to give some comparative differences between common projects.
Okay, and could I follow up? And then, so for the community benefit categories, have we defined what those mean exactly, or is that to be defined, or is it just kind of subjective, a case by case?
It's somewhat subjective. So it looks at the level of impact, whether it's a positive impact or a very positive impact, and same thing, or is it neutral, or is it negative or very negative? And then what's the breadth? Is it affecting less than 1% of the population, 25, 50, 75, 100%? So it's just on that type of a level that we're scoring these. So it is somewhat subjective. We did have meetings with other managers and other staff that generated these project business cases, and had some discussion to sort of vet through the scoring to make sure someone wasn't arbitrarily scoring everything high for whatever reason. And yeah, so it's, like I said, not a perfect science, but on those ones it was more of a general. Is it neutral, very high, very low, and what's the scope or the breadth across the population that it's impacting?
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, Council? Okay, would someone like to bring forward the resolution that's there, the recommendation? Whether or not we give our support for this? Councillor Holmes, thank you.
I'll move that the criteria weightings used within the project prioritization model as outlined in the project prioritization framework, easy for you to say, report from the Director of Works and Infrastructure dated November 23, 2020 be supported.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Barkwell.
A comment?
Yes.
It's a great discussion tool, I guess. And so when we get down to discussing the top 1, 2, or 3 projects, I'd like to have our own discussion through this lens on trying to set our priorities, because so maybe I'll try and print this and set it aside or something, or hopefully when staff bring forward the recommendations, they can speak a little bit to what they were thinking about and what weights they gave to the various aspects of this, so that we understand what they were thinking, and it certainly is helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. Any other comments or discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And then don't run away, because your next thing is the road condition assessment.
You bet. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to share my screen again for this PowerPoint slide presentation. Can you guys see that okay? All right. So this report and presentation is to give Council an update on the road condition assessment that was completed at the end of 2019 into the early stages of 2020. This assessment was done looking at the ASTM standard road distresses that can occur on a roadway. So there's 20 standardized distresses noted here. And from that, the goal is to get a consistent standard scoring of every road and every section of pavement that we have within the district. So obviously, trying to do this manually would be very time consuming and very difficult to be consistent and to do it in a efficient manner. So we engaged a company called StreetScan, and what they did is they drove this road assessment vehicle over 151 kilometers of paved roadway that we have within the district, capturing 3D images, looking and capturing pavement data, and measuring those 20 distresses as it traveled along our roadways. It was able to complete the full assessment, I believe, within 2 days over a weekend in September of 2019. And then from there, we got that image that you've seen on the cover slide, which I'll get to later in my presentation. But from that, they gathered all this data looking at the images, looking at the different distresses that were noted on each section. And from that, we're able to narrow this down to a PCI score, so a pavement condition index. They went through a bit of quality control and review to ensure that there were doing some spot checks on that to ensure that the data that was being produced for this PCI estimate was actually accurate, and that just to rule out and to reduce that level of error in producing this. So what we got out of this was a web-based GIS program that StreetScan houses for us. They house our data. We pay an annual license to utilize this software. And what's shown here is just a snapshot of the dashboard snippet that shows when you open it up. It shows you what the average PCI of all of our network is, what the total length of paved road that it assessed is, and what the maintenance backlog is for our network. We haven't, so with this, there's obviously a bunch of inputs in the background on how things like the maintenance backlog are determined. That's sort of where we're going now in the next stages. So what it does is you're able to set different maintenance or rehab scenarios based on whatever the PCI score is, and you're able to assign unit rate costs to those, which help generate some of this information. So on the figure here, everything that's in green has a PCI score of 80 or above. Then you get into yellow and orange, which is between 40 and 80, and then the red is between 0 and 40. So those areas in red are ones where the condition has completely deteriorated and likely will need full reconstruction in order to repave. The ones that are most important for a plan is looking at the ones that are in orange and yellow. So those are the ones that you likely would look at a mill and overlay scenario, and that would help save the life of the roadway. It would help preserve the base structure, assuming that there's a decent base there, and it would help push that back up into the green category, so above an 80 PCI. And what happens is, if you've seen deterioration curves, once it gets to a point, it slowly deteriorates over time. And then once you hit a certain point, then it drops off quite quickly. And you all of a sudden go from a roadway that you could have maybe overlaid and maintained and brought back up, has now dropped into the below 40 very quickly, because once the pavement starts to deteriorate, you get some water and moisture into the subbase and into the asphalt, and then freeze thaw happens in the spring and in the fall. And all of a sudden that asphalt falls apart. And you'll notice on some roadways that happens quite quickly. It might have seemed to be okay, and then over one freeze thaw season, all of a sudden that road just completely falls apart. And that's what happens, is it just drops off quickly at that point. So if we can catch it before it hits that point, that's a critical point that we want to try to achieve. Another thing that we got out of this survey was surface view, just snapshot images. So everything on the left-hand side of your screen, every single red dot that's shown there is an image that was taken as this vehicle was traveling along our roadway. So tons of data. We're able to go into any one of those, click on it as I've shown here, and then zoom into it to see what that roadway looked like on that day. So most people have started to use Google Street View quite a bit just for referencing things if they can't get out into the field. So this is just an added level of detail that we can use in the office, or if we're trying to document or review back on, what did that road look like last year. Once we have them come and scan again, which we would look to do every 3 to 5 years, we can go back and see how that has changed in a certain area. So just a very valuable piece of data that's added onto this program at a very minimal cost that we can utilize as we go forward. So from all that, like I said, there is some functionality within this that we can adjust and utilize for our capital planning. So shown in here, there's the different PCI ranges that you can set for the different repair categories that you're interested in possibly pursuing. And then from that, you'll get some recommended solution or recommended treatment that you want to pursue. So The intent in 2021, what we want to do is get in and really dig into the ranges that are shown there, set those different repair criteria and categories based on what we typically would do here in Summerland, assign some unit rates to that, and start using this and get it ready for 2022, which is when we have budgeted for our 10-year road and water main capital planning process. And this will be a very critical tool in helping us assess that and develop that plan. So this is just another schematic showing that with the based on the asphalt, looking at the different ranges, what are the various criteria you can use, and what are the unit rates for those different repair criteria. So this is just a snapshot from the program itself, which is very easy to get in and to edit these different ranges and these different criteria so that we can adjust the capital plan to suit us. So this is a snapshot of showing that map, not based on the PCI score, but based on the preventative maintenance or the different maintenance scenarios or categories that we want to do. These are just the defaults that are in there. There's defer maintenance, there's reconstruct, rehab, or preventative maintenance, which would be a resurfacing or potentially a crack sealing type of a program. And from that, we can just get some simple reports and data as well once we go through this and update it for our different repair categories. But this graph on the side here just gives an indication on based on these different programs and between our local and our collector roads, how many different sections we have that are in the preventative maintenance category, how many that have hit a spot where we're looking to do a more in-depth rehab, ones that are deferred, and ones that need complete reconstruction. So just gives just a quick visual on how does our network look overall. And then from there, there's a bunch of functionality within the program, again, that we're going to dig into in 2021, but there's different budget estimators and different tools to look at taking a first cut at what does a different capital plan look like. So the example here, I took about 20 minutes and just went through and set the program duration, and I just set a target index to see, what would we have to invest in our infrastructure to keep it around that 72 PCI. So that's something you could change in the program very easily, is just to adjust this number here to be, if you wanted to maybe hit a 80 is maybe a target that you want to achieve. You want to get all of our roads up to that, and you can do a quick assessment to see how much would that cost, or what would the recommended 5-year capital plan look like. So in this case, just to maintain what we have, these are the recommended costs. And probably more importantly at this point, because these costs we still need to vet through the unit rates and verify those for the cost that we see in our area, but more importantly the lengths here. So it's looking at somewhere between 4.5 and 6 kilometers of roadway that we should be looking to do some level of treatment on. So this is a mix mash of full reconstruction, surface overlays, crack sealing, and everything in between that you would be doing on this. So it's not always repairing the worst first. It's giving you sort of a proposed, in order to maintain this our network at this 72 PCI, this is what we should be investing, and this is the first cut over here of where these projects would be and what the recommended treatment is. So obviously, as you can see, you got some little outlier sections here that we'd have to look at, just as like wouldn't make sense to go in and just do a tiny little repair here. We'd have to check the data in some of those areas, but it helps give us a quick visual, which we can then output this into our actual our GIS as well, and look at our assets as far as, say, water or sewer or storm, and start using this in our capital planning to see where can we align projects, and wherever we're looking to do water main replacements, are we recommending that we do some surface treatments as well, and start combining those and making those projects more efficient. So very, very quick and simple analysis tool that we're pretty excited to get into in 2021 and start using more and more. So that is the end of my presentation, and if there are any questions from council, please fire away.
Start with you, Councillor Barkwool.
Well, thank you for letting me go first. I see there's a lot of hands up. This looks really like a really amazing technology and a great tool. And hopefully it'll be good ammunition for our argument with the provincial government that they should be covering some of these costs. Perhaps we don't want to do too much too soon until we see if we can't get something from them for some of these things. But also, how do we factor in the fact that there's some roads I noticed, like over there in Matsu and Whitfield, you know, there's very few houses on those roads. They see very little traffic. I think we have to also consider the traffic aspect. What's your take on that?
No, 100% agree, and that's I believe we can, if once we get updated traffic count data, which we would do on our next iteration of our transportation master plan update. I believe we have the ability to feed that into this program as well, to add as another layer. So then when we're looking at the budget estimator tool and looking to set these capital plans, you can put a different priority on whether it's a local road or a collector road. You can put a different ranking then on if it say has more than 2,000 vehicles a day or less than 2,000. So you can sort of have it internally skew those to be put more weight on the roads that are higher use. We can do that initially just based on the collector versus local roads. But we could also go in and ones that we know are higher use, we could assign those as a higher priority when we're crunching these different scenarios. So that ability is there, and it's something that we should definitely be considering as we're setting our capital plans moving forward.
Councillor Carlson.
Thanks. I'll just follow up on Councillor Barkwool's question. My first thoughts went to Matsu as well. I know you would have received a letter recently from one of the residents, and also Whitfield. I know there's not a lot of traffic down there, but there are a ridiculous number of people that walk that route every single day, all year round. And in the letter that was received, it basically doesn't say the road's a mess for driving. It says it's dangerous to walk on that road right now. And so I guess my question is, what would we ever consider making the rest of Matsu and Whitfield more like the other part of Matsu? I mean, we have to go over with a grader and maintain that. Is that a huge cost? Is that something that, you know, is having a gravel road a detriment, or was it an option that would make it cheaper and easier for us to actually do? Because right now, I mean, it's I mean, Matsu right by Sage Hills. I can't even imagine people even want to drive that road right now. So I know it may not have a lot of traffic every single day, but it's certainly really dangerous.
Yeah, so thank you, Councillor. Definitely letting our roads go to back to a graveled state, or identifying which ones maybe we should be looking to reduce those from asphalt to gravel is something that should be considered with our asphalt or with our asset management plans going forward. We do have a very high number of kilometers of road already in the district, upwards of, like I said, over 150 that are paved, and a lot of those extend out into those rural areas, and that is going to be we're hitting the point now where a lot of those are starting to fail, and we are looking to rehab them, and that should be a consideration, is putting it to a graveled state. Yeah, there will be annual maintenance costs on it. The grader would have to maintain it a few times throughout the year. However, that's a lot cheaper in the long run than looking to repave these now, especially when you have competing priorities on major roadways such as Prairie Valley and Giants Head. So some of the decisions when we're bringing it forward, that should be a consideration, and should be one of the, it's a good point, one of the ones that should be as part of that repair criteria should be, it should be putting it to a graveled roadway, and maybe a consideration and a cost.
Thank you. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because maybe that is the right decision. Because I just wanted to know if it was feasible or not. So thanks.
Councillor Trainer.
Hi, Chris. This is really neat technology. I think since I've been on council, we've kind of been waiting for something like this. I'm just wondering, is there, like, I know that this is public in the meeting, like the report that you presented, but is there anywhere on our website that we could also host this information? Because we get tons of complaints about the conditions of the roads all the time. And if people could go to the website and have a bigger picture for themselves and be able to see where we're at and, you know, the priorities and the scoring and stuff like that, I think it would be really helpful.
Yeah, I would be a little hesitant just handing out this data per se. We can administer internally different staff members just through web address or website, email addresses can provide access at different ranges. They can be a viewer, an editor, or an administrator. For the public, though, I think once we get that 10-year capital plan that sets out sort of the next 10 years of maintenance on our roads and on our water mains, that is definitely a key piece of information to get out to the public to show here's the priority projects that have been identified. Here's what we're going to be doing for our roadways for the next 10 years. And then they can see whether or not their roadway is on there and why these other ones were selected. So this raw data, I think right now is good for staff and to use as a tool when we're looking at different things, but probably not to the public yet.
Okay. Yeah, maybe just at some, I agree with what you said, but maybe at some point if even the map or something like that, just so that people can kind of have context as opposed to just reading where their street is on like a sheet of paper. I think it's good to, that gives a perspective of how big our district is and kind of what we're dealing with. And especially if we make decisions, if some become gravel versus paving, again, they'd have that information in the bigger picture. But it's really, really helpful information. So thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, could I have someone bring forward the motion, please? And read it, please. Councillor Barkwell, thank you.
That the road condition assessment report from the Director of Works and Infrastructure dated November 23rd, 2020 be received for information. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Van Elfen? Any further discussion? Councillor Barkwell?
No, I was just getting ahead.
You're getting ready. Okay, so I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, great. That carries. Thank you. Now for our second opportunity for the public and or the media to comment. Do we have anyone on the line, Karen, or no? All right. So could I have someone on council bring forward a resolution to close the meeting to the public? Councillor Van Elfen and Councillor Holmes, all in favor? Okay, great. So that's done.
I will be right back.
Okay.
Me too.
How about we take a 5-minute break? Okay, see you in 5.